I know, the iPhone 15, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max are literally about to drop within hours. But that doesn't mean that the conversation of the iPhone 14 Pro Max 1 year later is irrelevant. Matter of fact, it's more relevant than you think, because this right here is gonna be the phone that you can get either at a discount and a cheaper price versus upgrading if you have an older device. But it's also gonna show you the preliminary as to what to expect, because the 15, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max are nothing but the improvement or perceived improvement of this device. So how this device has performed over the last year is extremely important, and it's a preview as to what we could expect with the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro Max, as well as just how well our iPhone's doing in 2023. Now, I've had this device since launch date, 100%. I actually started off with the 14 Pro, and then I realized that I wanted the 14 Pro Max for this year. I wanted the battery, you know, that's the thing. So this year I will be doing 15 Pro versus 15 Pro Max, and we can even throw in the iPhone 15 if you guys want to. Hit the comment section down below and let me know. Now let's talk about this device. As far as cons over this last year, it's nothing more than the typical that you probably might mention when it comes to Apple, which is, you know, the lack of grid customization, which there are workarounds and so forth, which I'm cool with. I do appreciate what we do have with these little widgets and so forth, but it would be nice to finally at some point get an iOS update that allows us to customize the grid a little bit more. And another con in the beginning was that battery life wasn't living up to its predecessor, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and a lot of people were disappointed. But as with all devices, especially in the Apple ecosystem, you can count on app updates, iOS updates, and so forth to help improve that over time. So iOS 16, that was another con in the beginning. Very bumpy, very rocky along the road. But 1 year later, we can finally say that iOS 16 has found a nice smooth patch. There's been some, you know, moments, like AirDrop not too long ago, I think like a month or so back, was just not working, and then it started working again and so forth. So it's not perfect, but iOS and the iPhone experience tends to be the closest optimized to perfection out of all of the platforms and devices available on the market, which is why you see a lot of people tend to favor the iPhone. But even beyond that, let's get into what my 1 year has been like. Let me just show you from a durability standpoint. I don't know if you guys can see, but I do have scratches. If I have to go to B-roll for it, I'll show you. I use this device as is, like literally no case, the way that it was designed and intended to be used. And I will say this, I'm not saying that the iPhone 14 Pro Max is unbreakable, but it is very durable this year, extremely durable. And the iPhone just gets more and more durable year after year. Yes, you can break it, yes, you can shatter it, so don't think that you can just get away with it. And my disclaimer is, do not do what I do. But I've used this device completely caseless for a year. And as you guys can see, other than like the smudges from the stainless steel, from my fingerprints and so forth, everything has held up extremely well. Even my cameras. I'll get some like macro shots with my macro lens, and we can get a deep dive. But just in general, even the frosted back coating, like the only thing I have on the back of my device is this Apple Wallet. As you can tell, this thing has been rocking with me. So that does not cover everything, and literally that's it. So that is the way that I've been using this device. And from a design perspective, we all know the premium build of iPhones hold up for long periods of time, and that's greatly appreciated. The stainless steel, frosted back, sapphire crystal, it's all a combination for a build that lasts the test of time. And that's exactly what this 14 Pro Max has done from a design perspective. Now, if we get into the OLED panel, you guys know, if you don't know, if you're new to the channel, I love Apple's OLED calibration. Listen, you're always gonna hear Samsung users, oh, but Samsung makes their displays. Samsung manufactures them, meaning that Apple gives the specs and the design blueprint for what they want, the color accuracies, the P3 gamuts, what they're expecting, and then Samsung just manufactures that, meaning they produce the OLED panel to Apple's spec. So let's just erase that myth. But the reason why I enjoy and love is because it's color accurate. Color accuracy is everything when it comes to a panel, especially for me as someone who's a creative. If I'm gonna like get down and edit a photo in Lightroom on my device, or even go as far as to making a video and, you know, color grading it or whatever. I need color accuracy, and that extends from Apple's Pro machines, Pro displays, from a computer perspective down into their smartphones. So it's just keeping consistency and continuity amongst the whole Apple ecosystem. We'll talk about that later too, because that's another thing that you experience when you're using the iPhone. The OLED panel was one of the brightest of its time when it came out. I can't believe that, right? Samsung was not the first to have the 1750 nit peak brightness, but this thing is easy to see outside in direct sunlight without issue. A matter of fact, it was giving a lot of smartphones havoc out there in direct sunlight until recent. Most devices have caught up, but there's no issue using this thing in any condition, outside or inside, and it looks absolutely amazing. So the only other topic around the OLED panel is dynamic island. Everyone was, you know, indifferent about it, but they didn't realize that over time, as you got to use it and you got to see the software benefits and the iOS adoption of the dynamic island, you got to see that it's an extremely useful tool up there, and Apple did a genius thing by camouflaging this with software. For me, Face ID is worth its weight in gold. Like literally, for me, I love Face ID. And to keep Face ID as of right now until technology changes, you gotta deal with the dynamic island. But the way that Apple incorporated it into the software, genius. So it works out just fine for me. I literally haven't had any issues consuming content on this device. Like if I flip to a video right here, the 16:9 aspect ratios, you guys can see the bars are not that bad. They're worse on other aspect ratios, but everything lines up, and the color accuracy and the naturalness of this OLED panel is just outright a W. Another thing that accompanies the consumption of media when we're talking about the visuals of the display are the speakers. And Apple brings the speakers to the yard, baby. No matter if it's their iPads, Pro or regular, if it's their laptops, base model up to Pro model. Obviously it gets better with the Pro models, but the speakers deliver nonstop. Like if I were to pull up lossless audio, so if you want to listen to music on speaker, they got you covered. If you want to watch a video and hear it in a great audio, you know, representation, the iPhone 14 Pro Max definitely has you covered in more ways than one. So next, let me just talk about platform slightly. And platform, we gotta talk about the iOS 16 experience over this last year. Now, as I said before, it was rocky in the beginning. I haven't had as many bugs as I see people complaining and rambling about online. To each his own, everyone has different apps and different setups, so I can just only attribute it to that. iOS 16 has had a few hiccups here and there for me for sure that I've noticed. I'm like, man, but it has not been enough or a percentage large enough outside of probably, I would say like, it's probably like 98% of fair usage to 2% of the hiccups, if we're being realistic. But I think looking at everyone else, it's probably like a more 96 or 95 to 5% ratio. But in general, what Apple has created with their software experience and, you know, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the chip that's in here, dynamic island, the all-encompassing platform, it's actually been a great and ideal experience over this year. It's literally smooth as butter, and it just works. I just had to say that just to piss off some people, just for fun, you know what I mean? But honestly, it's literally been smooth as ever. I don't have any complaints. Like the use cases have been ideal. I like the implementation. Some of the newer features that we got in iOS 16 were great. And we got even more coming with iOS 17, but that's another conversation for another video. And nevertheless, the experience is just gonna get better. And if you were to opt in for an iPhone 14 Pro Max as opposed to getting the latest, you're still gonna get an ideal experience. It's still gonna have performance that's crazy because the bionic chips that they're putting in these devices year over year, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just at that point that Apple is so ahead of the competition with their chipset. They're bringing an ideal SoC experience, and you can get a 14 Pro Max, have everything go to iOS 17, and still have an ideal experience. You can use an iPhone 13 Pro Max, go to iOS 17, which is my beta phone, and have an ideal experience. So that just goes to show the longevity of iPhones. You don't have to buy the latest and greatest. You can buy last year's at a discount and still have an ideal experience. So I just want to give an ode to the iPhone 14 Pro Max in that right. Now, performance, that's something else that we could talk about. I kind of mentioned the SoC for a second. I mean, come on, bro. Like, do we have to say this every year? The highest rated chip typically when you do benchmarks and all that, which I don't get into. Efficiency, the most optimized. The battery gets a benefit from the optimization and efficiency that's built into this platform and performance from the Apple Bionic chip. I don't have to ramble on about performance, it's there. Like, it's one of the best gaming devices on the market. It's one of the best and efficient devices on the market. It's one of the best, period. If not the best, but that's arguable, and that's more into the line of preference, if we wanna be honest. Now, the next topic I wanna get into are these right here, the cameras. This is one of the things that is always championed on the iPhone. It's one of the highly most recommended video and photo cameras on the smartphone year after year, and I'm gonna show you exactly why when we go outside. And I got a bonus for you, so let's go. Okay, so this is the front-facing camera on the iPhone 14 Pro Max out here in direct sunlight. So this is the best opportunity and honestly the most challenging opportunity for all cell phone cameras. While it has the most light to give the best, results, it also has to deal with the fact that it has the most light out. And what I mean by that, what I'm gonna show you guys today is the power of an ND filter and why it's important and why it changes the results you get and kind of tones down the processing. Because even the iPhones, which is touted as the best or one of the highly recommended video cameras and photo cameras on a smartphone, it still has heavy processing that I'm not the biggest fan of, but you mitigate that with tools such as ND filters. But I think I found the best rendition of ND filters because it just works with MagSafe. It's super minimal and it's ideal. But this is the front-facing camera on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm gonna flip it to the rear and then we'll show you guys those NDs. All right, so here we have it. Auto mode, everything in the native camera app doing what it does on the iPhone. This is the wide angle lens. I'm gonna flip it to the ultra wide, boom, just switch to the ultra wide lens. This is that fun lens, this is that vlogging lens, this is that I know I'm in the shot, even though I can't see myself lens. All right, this is the iPhone's telephoto lens. I know you probably all up in my grill, back up. I just wanted to zoom through this real quickly in the auto app, and now I want to switch to the real potential of what these lenses can do. Okay, so right now I have an ND filter. It's a -6. I locked the shutter speed at the proper shutter speed. I'm shooting 4K 24 frames per second with a 1/48 shutter speed. ISO's down to like 57. I don't even know if that's the lowest. Everything's balanced properly. So this should be the most ideal results from the iPhone rear wide angle camera. Okay, exact same shot without the ND filter. As you can see, this is why an ND filter is absolutely important, because this is what's necessary in order to get the proper settings for the camera, for your lens, so that you get the proper results. All right, so we have the infamous ultra wide fun lens. I switched to a -4 ND because I know that the f-stops in between the normal wide lens and the ultra wide are totally different. So you should be seeing A1 results, or at least ideal results, outside of the auto app. Okay, so with all that being said and done, I'm back on the wide. I'm at only a -4. I was at a -6 earlier, but hopefully everything is being contained. I'll know when I get in the post. But I just wanted to share the reality that all smartphone cameras have great abilities. It's all about hardware. But the beauty about the iPhone is that since there's such a market for it, especially around cameras, there's a lot of accessories for the iPhone around cameras. So you can get an ecosystem like what I have right here with this pan system, which is MagSafe, has a very minimal design, and it's super convenient, and it's actually very effective. The add-on filters go even further than this, but I just wanted to show you proper settings and also the quality that you could get out of the iPhone camera. So let's go back inside and discuss this. Okay, so you guys just saw the performance of the iPhone 14 Pro Max's cameras, along with the use of ND filters as well. they're already good alone just using the auto app. And again, sometimes Apple can overprocess for my liking, but that's where the use of pro apps, which we still don't have a native pro app. Apple, please give us native pro controls. But with the pro app and ND filters, you can literally take this camera housing to the next level. And I love the results. I appreciate them a lot. Can they be better? Always. On any device, it can always be better. Can they improve? Hopefully they do with the next iteration of iPhone 15, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max. But if you were talking about my camera performance, I've used this over and over for B-roll. I've used this over and over for convenient shots in video and photo over this year. So I can literally give this camera housing the stamp of approval. Now let's talk about battery life. This was a slightly controversial subject because in the beginning, the battery life wasn't great in the sense that it wasn't the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The 13 Pro Max set the bar here, and then the 14 Pro Max came in like slightly under right there, and that made everyone mad. Even though it was still phenomenal battery, it just wasn't what people were used to and what people paid and expected. But lo and behold, iOS 16 updates over time, and eventually it just optimized right into place. My battery life is phenomenal. My battery health is still phenomenal. I see a lot of people on Twitter showing their battery health, saying that this year's iPhone battery degraded like, you know, the most they've ever seen, but there's multiple factors. One, how are you guys charging your devices? I'm just kind of curious. Are you guys using wireless, MagSafe, or wired charging? Comment down below, because we got to take this into account. And then I'm gonna pull up my battery health. So as you guys see, 1 year later, I'm at 98%. Now, in all fairness, I am like ideal in the way that I charge my device. And let me just educate you guys. Typically, you don't want to charge your device to a full 100%, and neither do you want to allow it to ever go to 0%. So if you can stay in between, like go to 98%, pull it off, and then never let it drain to 0, you can help your battery health have longevity. Another thing you can do is relax on your device. Now, I'm just playing. Listen, some people use their devices more than others. Some people are gonna recharge and top it up more than others. But I'm telling you, do not allow your device to die out on you. I rarely, if not have ever, allowed this 14 Pro Max to ever die. It's probably been a couple of times. I mean, it happens. Come on now. We can't be perfect. But do not generally make it a habit of allowing your device to go to 0%. And do not make it a habit of charging it like overnight left in on the charger. I know nowadays we got the newer technology and these chargers are cutting off and they're chilling. And I actually see that because they'll get cool and they want to keep it hot. So, you know, you can consider that. But if you can, charge it like while supervised and pull it off at 98% or 99, you can help the longevity of your battery. But I'm at 98%. I'm also not a heavy phone addict type of user. Some people use their devices for everything, and you're gonna see battery degradation a lot more than someone who's just using their device in a more casual or typical manner versus the heavy user. I just wanna throw that out there, but battery life has been phenomenal, and my battery health, as you can see, is still phenomenal. Now, the topic of discussion, user experience. And before I jump all the way into user experience, let's talk about ecosystem, because that comes along with the Apple setup. That comes along with all setups. Like even when I just talked about the Z Fold 5, I talked about how I use the Watch 6 Classic. Well, with this iPhone 14 Pro Max, I've been using the Apple Watch Ultra alongside it for this entirety of the, you know, Apple Watch Ultra being out. So boom, here you go. Now I started off with a stainless steel Apple Watch, but when the Ultra was announced, I switched to that. So this right here is my go-to every day, all day. And I use Bluetooth mainly. I do not have an LTE connection, so I'm drawing on this device for battery and connection and alerts and everything. I use the Apple Wallet, as you can see. It's convenient, and it also helps me, since I don't have a case, kind of hold it and get a little bit of a grip on it, as well as when I put it down, I can put it on the wallet versus the phone itself. We also have this, the best iPad right here, the iPad 6 mini. As you can see, dirty from use case, carrying it with me everywhere. Now, as far as like my computer system goes, I have a main at-home editing workstation, and then I have a laptop with Apple that I take around. I just wanted to point those out because those are the things that I'm using in combination with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. It just makes the overall user experience that much more effective and that much more improved because I'm able to have all of these devices talk seamlessly to one another. Apple TV, some smart home stuff as well, and that collective adds to the user experience. And the ecosystem is a huge part of the user experience when it comes to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But outside of ecosystem, focusing more on just the device alone, when I look at the longevity of my device quality-wise, without using a case and seeing how well it's held up, that's user experience. That's a plus. When I experience the OLED panel, using it consistently, consuming content, the speakers in combination with that, it being just an ideal device, the sizing, the aspect ratio, it's just been great over this entire year to use and consume media on. We all know when it comes to social media, uploading, videos and photos, they're always gonna be better on the iPhone, so it adds to the social media user experience as well. I talked about my cameras in the video and how I rely on this device to fill in as a stopgap in between me and my professional camera for B-roll and other things and quick shots and photos and so forth. So it's just a perfect companion, in my opinion, for me for the daily as my go-to smartphone device. And my battery life, phenomenal. Like, I can be careless about charging this device, which I absolutely am. As you guys can see, I'm only at 32%. I have not charged this. I've been using this. This is me coming from use from yesterday into today and probably the day before. I don't know, it depends. I don't know, I've just been going. But I typically will charge it when I need to. When I see it getting really low, I'll charge it. Neither am I in jeopardy of ever running out of battery life. At least that's the way it feels, and that's the way it's been for this entire year with the iPhone 14 Pro Max for me personally. Now, I told you guys that iOS 16 had some bumps in the road in the beginning, felt those, few little hiccups, but as I said, for me personally, 98% smooth and ideal versus the 2% of hiccups that I've had over this entirety of a year. You gotta understand, this is a year. It's gonna take a lot of hiccups to break down that percentage. You gotta be realistic. We talk about like 360 some odd days. How many of those days have been inconvenient versus how many have just been ideal? Come on, be realistic. You know who I'm talking to. I'm talking about y'all, you know who you are. And how worked up you guys get over nothing. So the user experience for those who do subject themselves to the Apple, world and the iPhone Pro Max world, because this is a large device. And as an added con for some, it could be too big for some people's hands. Some people cannot have the maneuvering. Get your pinky reps up, bro. Because when you got the pinky reps, you know how to hold this bad boy with the pinky. I got a swole pinky, let's just put it that way. I got two of them. But one-handed use, you get used to it. And some people, they never do. I don't have the largest mitts and paws, but I'm able to palm and use an iPhone 14 Pro Max like nobody's business, as you guys can see, with one hand. There's so many things within the user experience, so many things that it just does, that I feel like these are all features that people don't count as features because they're just like automatic, but they are. And they add to the iOS and iPhone experience. And the iPhone 14 Pro Max, in my opinion, this right here is an absolutely worthy device to own, use, and keep for the longevity of an iPhone user.
It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. Misunderstood. Get up, had to beat those eyes. Got up and I beat those eyes. It's understood. It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. And now I'm good. Wake up and I do my part. Wake up and I do my job just how I should. It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. Misunderstood. Get up, had to beat those eyes. Got up and I beat those eyes. That's understood. It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. And now I'm